Are you tired of playing small and ready to step confidently into your greatness and share your unique brilliance with the world? Well, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon, and I've dedicated nearly 2 decades to empowering individuals and leaders as they confidently navigate the twists and turns of life and career transitions. If you're seeking direction, connection, or just a little push to play bigger, consider this podcast your VIP pass to a community that genuinely understands your journey. Join me every week for candid conversations and practical guidance designed to help you navigate the challenges of life and business, foster a growth mindset, and cultivate meaningful connections. It's time to embrace your inherent power, define your unique purpose, and prosper in every aspect of your life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Sabine Gideon, and I'm excited to be back another week with you with another powerhouse who will be joining me on this discussion around power paradigms and how we as women can begin to heal our relationship with power. So if you are completely new to the show and this is your first episode, welcome. I am excited to have you here and I hope you gain some nuggets of wisdom, which I have no doubt that you will, given who my guest is. And so I will introduce her briefly and then have her tell you a little bit about her background. So Dr. Tana Sessions is the CEO and founder of Tana M Sessions.com, a certified woman minority business enterprise with over 30 years of human resources experience. Dr. Session is a recognized cultural transformation architect specializing in facilitated experiences and leadership and organizational development. She has spent 10 years as the top human resources executive for both domestic and international organizations, where she led various change initiatives and up-leveled entire departments, including talent, systems, and operations. And with that, welcome to the show, Dr. Tana.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really, really excited to be here and be a part of the conversation today.
Oh, absolutely. And so for those of you who are listening, you are in for an amazing conversation. I was on her show not too long ago. And as I was prepping to be on her show, I discovered that she had written this amazing book centered around, owning your power, owning your voice, and especially for women of color and especially for Black women, because we were talking about this in the green room. Women in general, right? We have some healing to do when it comes to our association, our relationship with power. But Black women in particular, there's some deep-seated things that we need to uncover and unroot. But before we get into the juicy part of the conversation, Dr. Tana, I would love for you to share with the audience your most significant career milestones and or catalysts that have brought you to this place.
I was thinking about this question, and I think one of my most significant career stones was when I was able to actually take my power back and move from being an HR generalist to being an HR manager, which meant I had to leave the comforts of a company that I was very, very comfortable in, very well known, very well liked, but still encountered career blocks, right? Where I knew I had all the skills, all the experience, all the right relationships. I knew how to network. I knew how to navigate the corporate spaces, but was not able to get promoted to the next level. And I saw others around me being promoted that, of course, didn't look like me in most cases, didn't have the same experience, the same background that I did. And I couldn't really get a solid answer as to why that was happening to me. The goalpost was always being moved. And so I decided to look externally. And I was able to move from an HR generalist to an HR manager at another company. It was a small startup. I was the first person in HR at the company. I was employee number 50 after leaving a company that, had 30,000 employees, right, around the world. And, it was this CEO that, took a chance on me. And, luckily I was able to rise to the occasion, and I grew the company to 75 employees and was able to build an HR department to have, HR assistant and coordinator. And that to me is what really catapulted and started growing my career in HR very quickly. Once I, took that leap of faith and, got comfortable being uncomfortable.
I love that. I love that. And so many nuggets that you shared there, similarly with my career. I was actually thinking about this and you just sparked it similar to you, and I preach this all the time, right? About building your social capital, making sure that the right people know you, engaging sponsors, engaging mentors in your career. Especially the earlier part of my career, I didn't know any of that. And then
Right.
I discovered it after observing enough Bobs.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah. And so you start to practice it. And yes, at least for me, I saw change within the organization that I was first at. But I also realized that, there was a cap, regardless, like whether there were some unwritten things, right, regarding me or the organization and the culture. And it wasn't until I had stepped out and left that company and then, recreated the same things, the same activities, and then left that company. And it at the time, I didn't even think about it. But literally last week, after having another conversation with a guest, I thought for a moment, I was just like, I've never been promoted the entire time that I was in corporate America. And I don't know why that shocked me. I don't know that I ever stopped to think about that. For as hard as I worked and as much as I networked and did all the things, every elevation required me to leave the organization and to step into a new place and demonstrate what I was capable of. So, thank you for sharing that and sparking that for me. So let's dig a little deep into this, right? Because my listeners are uh, on average between women in professional environments as well as entrepreneurship. And there is a lot that, I preach and my guests preach on this is what you do to advance. But we all know that like while I do believe success leaves clues, everyone's success path isn't the same. So I'm curious with the lessons that you've learned and the people that you've worked with, how do you help women and Black women in particular not only just navigate, the unwritten rules, but really reconcile within themselves when they are following the rules and the rules aren't serving them?
Yeah. And that's one of the things I too coach, executives and in particular, high level executives at the C-suite level. And oftentimes those may be women. Either they're in the role for the first time or they are encountering some sort of challenges and, they're concerned about how they're showing up. And I think, I can relate to my own experience first and foremost. I think it's being comfortable knowing that you're enough. Right. I think it has to start with that, knowing that you are enough. So we being Black people, Black women, BIPOC people, we will go out and get all the degrees. You can see them on my wall, all the certifications, they're on another wall, all of the trainings and everything else, right, to keep adding to who we are so that we can gain that acceptance, gain that, validation that says, oh, okay, you're enough now. Come on in, right? But we have to know that we're enough even without those things. At the end of the day, you have to have that belief in yourself that you have the experience, you have the knowledge. You may not know everything. No one does. That's okay. Because there's a lot of people out here faking it until they make it. And at the end of the day, showing up as your true self, being confident in what you bring to the table and knowing that you deserve to be at the table, right? That's the other part of it. And we have to get out of our own heads, right? That's where the imposter syndrome kicks in because Lord knows I've been a victim of it. And sometimes it still kicks in. I have to say, okay, little Tana, go sit over there right now and go suck on that lollipop. I'm not listening to you, So doing that self-work is going to be the main part of it because that's going to give you that inner strength where you feel like this door is open and I believe I belong here.
Absolutely. That self-belief is everything. And that's the real work, right?
Yeah.
It's not the grind, it's not the proving. The real work is getting you to do the work of deprogramming all of the messages that you've picked up along the way, in your household and society and your friends groups to get to a place where you can confidently, flat-footed say,
Yep.
this is who I am, this is my worth, this is what I bring to the table, and the value that I get to share with the world. So thank you for that. And along those lines, that is, to me, I feel like, at least for me personally, it's been part of my journey in uncovering my inner power. Because the way that society society, the narrative around power in society is really about, something that is given to you or something that is external or the way that you demonstrate. But I've learned through this process of doing my own internal work that, all the power is within me. Like I just get to exercise it externally. So with that, we were talking a little bit about this in the green room. I don't know, I'm in a season, I guess that's the best way to put it. But I've been led to really, maybe for me personally, and I certainly believe that anything that we experience for ourselves is really for us to share with others. But this in the season of really dissecting what it means to be powerful, what it means to own your own power. And for a very long time, the term empowered has been assigned to women, right? Like we want to be empowered. And I don't know about you, but something just didn't sit well with me. I was just like, why do I have to be empowered? Right? I just want to be able to exercise power and know that I am powerful. Yeah. So with that, as I started to study, it was just like, okay, well, what are some of the words that I associate with power? That's also authority, it's influence, control, domination, right? So I'm going down this whole like word path of like, what are these words, just so I could uncover for myself. But I think the three that I think are neutral enough and they have different meanings to different people are power, authority, and influence. So I'm curious for you, how do you define those three individually? And how have those experiences shown up for you? Or how have they shown up in your experiences?
Well, I would say power, when I talk to people about owning their own power, and this is some self work I did years ago, it started with first and foremost forgiving myself, right? I had to forgive myself for mistakes I made along the way, times when I wanted to point the finger at someone else without recognizing there were three pointing back at me. Forgiveness for, decisions I made that took me off track, in the moment, making emotional decisions, all of those things. Then I had to also look to forgive others. And sometimes that means people who may never know they did you wrong, who may never ask for an apology, who are walking this life like lottie-dottie and not caring about what the ramifications are of things that they've said or done to you, right? That's just who they are as people. And then I had to realize that I also deserve success, and recognizing that success means something different to every single person, like you said earlier. And my success is not predicated by someone else's. So I can't look to the left or the right to see what someone else is doing to say, oh my gosh, I'm falling behind. I got to catch up. No, my race is my race. And being okay and comfortable in that, right? Like even to the point of unfollowing people on social media who I felt like were intimidating, or, that should be me, or why isn't that me? Like, nope, take that out of my aura, take that out of my mind, my space, my subconscious. And then understanding that any adversities that I've experienced in life are not not the floor, they're the ceiling, right? So I'm not the ceiling, rather, they are an opportunity for me to move past that. So using them as a foundation, as the floor for my success, stepping on them and not letting them sink me down, right? So I've experienced tons of adversities from childhood to corporate trauma, the list goes on, marital trauma, et cetera. And moving past that and understanding that I can't let those things be excuses, right, for why I can't do something. So when I think about power, it's all of those things combined. It's also privilege. Like we all have privilege in some way. We may not think of it. The word's been weaponized, in particular over the last 3 years. But we have to understand that privilege is not a dirty word. And we all have opportunities where we have privilege that we can lean into. When I think about authority, that again is another area of power. But it also says that you have recognized who you are, right? So when you walk in a room, you own that room, you own that space. You speak with confidence. You speak in a way that, makes other people listen. You don't let others talk over you or to dismiss you or, man talk you, mansplain or any of that stuff, right? You use your words because, as you said earlier, words of power. You use your words in that authority in a way that makes people listen. And, that's going to, again, come in different forms. It doesn't mean you have to be a leader or an executive or anything like that. I was an administrative assistant. I had authority, right? I was a gatekeeper for my boss. So people knew they had to go through me to get to him. And so that's a level of authority, right? Understanding kind of where you are in your space, whether it's corporate, entrepreneurial, what that authority looks like. So I think those are two of the things I think they kind of lean into each other. And I get what you were saying, like These words don't necessarily, they're not the same. They are separate. They really are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Third word. I love influence because we have a way of influence. We as women, we as Black people, we as Black women, we have a way of influencing the world. So we need to first and foremost recognize that. Okay. So I have fortunately been to Africa for the last 2 years. I've gone 3 times, visited 11 different countries.
Wow.
And through that, I have learned who we are as a people. And I was already proud to be a Black person and a Black woman. But when I tell you, when you go to the motherland and you get to understand that first and foremost, civilization started there. So everybody out here has African DNA, whether or not they want to admit it or not, it's okay. We don't care. At the end of the day, science tells you that's where you're from. Understanding the influence that we have as a people from the way we wear our hair, the way we dress, our swag, the way we speak, our music, the way we educate, our knowledge, the way we are able to invent things. We have stoplights, we have elevators, the folding chair, so many things that we as a people have done and created and built, not to mention the whole United States, that has influence. So when you understand that as a Black person, there's no stopping you. Your influence is limitless. So we have to understand, kind of first and foremost, tapping into that ancestral power and authority to understand what that influence is, right? So I lean into that every single day. And I tell people my ancestors are so powerful, it just amazes me every single day. So once you have that understanding, you don't have to go to the motherland to get that, right? I understand everyone can't do it, but if you can, please do. Stop going to Europe, stop going to the islands, go to where we came from, and then go back, right? I think that will help you understand where your influence is. Again, once you walk into a room, people are going to recognize you. People are going to want to hear you. People are going to want to know who you are, because we have this swag. We have this aura about who we are as a people.
Yeah.
It can't be ignored.
I love that you brought that up because it makes me think about my genealogy, so to speak. So I don't know where from the motherland my family came from, but I'm of Haitian descent, and so like everybody down the line for a very long time has been in Haiti. So while I had to discover power and all this other stuff for different reasons, there has always been a part of me that felt powerful, if that makes sense, just because of the history of like my ancestors and my nation. And so for those of you who are listening who are not familiar or didn't know, I was born in Haiti, and Haiti was the first Black nation, if you will, to gain its independence. So they were the first slave nation to override. I mean, they've paid a hefty price for that freedom.
Still paying.
Yeah, but nonetheless, they pay for that. And there's always been this sense of pride. Like right now, if you look at the narrative that the media shows of Haiti, it's like it's a third world country and it's destruction. Yes, all that is true, but yet the pride of the people, of who they are, generations, centuries later, it still reigns true. And that's what I think has been some of the source of like my resilience, some of the like source of like my pride and my understanding and my knowledge of no matter what I experience, I will get through that. And again, that's inside. Like no one could have taught me that in school. No one could have given me a certificate that said, all right, Sabine, you are resilient and you are prideful and you will get through whatever. And so I thank you for bringing that up. And so I'm curious because I'm in this and I know that this is a work in progress, right? Just like you said with the imposter syndrome, like you don't just wake up every day like I am powerful and I'm influential. No, some days you're like, I ain't got it. Some days you wake up, I ain't got it. So I'm curious, what are some of the routines that you've built into your day? What are some of the habits that help you maintain your position and your posture and being rooted at your true source of power?
I'm glad you asked that, because every day I have these motivational quotes in my calendar So my alarm goes off usually around 6 or 6:30 because I'm also in law school and I get up early when the house is quiet and do some studying. And so I look at these in the morning before I even leave my bed. So I meditate on them, I say my daily prayer, and then I get my day started. So I want to tell you what they are. The first one is, you are a money magnet and worthy to be rich and wealthy with financial freedom. The next one, the Lord has pleasure in the prosperity of his servant. I'm about to come into an inheritance. Mm-hmm. I'm a top, sought after, highly paid keynote speaker, changing lives and work at home. Changing lives at work and home. Next one, everything I touch will turn to gold. And then finally, no, there's another one after this. I kill time, time doesn't kill me. So that's about my time management. And then the last one, you are blessed, my daughter Tana. You will do both mightily and will surely prevail. Mm-hmm. I read those every single day. Then I meditate, then I pray, and then my feet hit the floor. And sometimes I exercise, sometimes I don't. I probably need to do it way more than I do. I start my day. So my day starts with me right now. Again, I'm in law school. I'm a 2L. So it starts with me studying for about 3-4 hours. Then I get my day started with my clients. And then around 4, I pivot and go back to law school for a couple hours, then have dinner, wind down time with my husband. We watch TV and just kind of wind the day down. And that's kind of on repeat, right? It's like a system, it's a rhythm. And when I'm off that rhythm, I can feel it, right? When I skip a day of not, reading those things to myself and kind of embedding them into the start of my day, I can feel it, right? I can feel the gap, I can feel the difference. And so I've built these habits into my regular daily activities. Even when I'm on vacation, I read these things. That's still how I start my day. I may not get up as early, but I start my day with those things because I want to constantly remind myself of who I am and whose I am. Mm-hmm. And that's going to give me the power to get through whatever I'm challenged with through the day, whether business is good, slow, non-existent, I'm having a bad day with my husband, I'm not, like all of those things are going to help keep me grounded, right? 10 toes down. And it helps me to understand kind of where to tap back into my source of strength, because it doesn't all come from me. All the accolades, all the degrees, certifications, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's wonderful and it's great. It's representation of, the work that I've done, but I wasn't walking this path by myself, not one single day.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love that. And so I'm a firm believer of having a daily routine because I just think it grounds you. But I love the fact that you incorporate the affirmations. One thing that I've incorporated and want to continue to incorporate is gratitude. The focus of it is not the what you do. It's not how you do it. It's that you are making time, you are prioritizing your mind, your body, your spirit, whatever that looks like for you, and that you are feeding yourself first before you feed anyone else. And it's like I had a client one time and she was just like, oh, well, by the end of the day, I'm just so drained. And then I start the next day and I had to ask her, I was like, how often do you charge your battery or do you charge your phone? And she was like, oh, okay. Every day. Yes. You have a routine at the end of the night to charge your phone. Let your routine be to charge yourself first thing in the morning so that you're not pouring out all of you and then end up empty and feeling powerless when something hits you that you're not expecting. So as we're just shifting gears here, as we're looking outside, there's a lot that has happened in the last 3 years with regards to, women finding their voice between like the Great Resignation and deciding that this is not for me or this does not align with who I am and quitting. And then we have Gen Z who has come through and said, I don't want to do any of that. Like, I don't want your struggle life. So we've seen, globally, the workforce change dramatically, and it's only going to continue to change at this rapid pace, especially with the introduction of generative AI in, many organizations and many functions. And so as we're thinking about the next generation and what they need to understand, what are some thoughts that you have around practical advice that we could give them so that they can avoid some of those longer valley seasons, or they can start to build, they can start to create habits that help build that confidence so that when they are being challenged or when they are climbing the ladder, that they don't forget who they are.
First and foremost, you got to have a village, right? I think that's been some of the things that really has helped me along the way when I was challenged. I have friends that I've been friends with for over 30 years. So they've seen my struggles. They've seen, me go through 2 divorces and get married a third time. They've seen me, get fired from a job. They've seen me, struggle financially, all of those things, right? So I had to have that village around me. If I didn't, I don't know what I would have done without them, right? To give me that soft landing and that safe space to be vulnerable, to cry, to cuss and be mad, to strategize, right? And to remind me who I am in those, dark moments when you really question yourself. So I would say the village around you, and that village is gonna look different for everyone. Mine's are mostly friends, not so much family, but friends. Some people have parents, they have guardians or siblings that they can turn to. I would say, decide who that village is. And in a lot of ways, I call them almost like your board of directors, right? They're the ones that are going to hold you honest, that are going to hold you accountable, that are going to call you out on your BS, that are going to keep you grounded, the higher you go. Like, don't forget who you are, Tana. Okay, yeah, I remember. But in a loving way, right? Not punitive. So I think those are the things that, when you think about what does this next generation need, is to know they're not out here, they can't do it by themselves. As much as they can think they can, I don't care how much access you have to information, at the end of the day, you still need to have people to talk to. And, now more importantly, I've embraced therapy. So I'm also in couples therapy. So my husband and I, decided last year we're going to do couples therapy. We've been together for 21 years. And we're like, yeah, let's get some tools just in case we need them. And then it's like, okay, we need these tools now. So leaning into that, and Black people, Black men especially, sometimes are hesitant about that. They're worried about, I don't want anybody in my business. Well, you got to have sometimes an outside neutral perspective that can, again, call you out on your BS, hold you accountable, help you look at things differently, because sometimes we're so in it, we can't see outside to say, oh, you know what, it's not as big of a problem as I thought it was. It's like in this vacuum, it feels like it's overwhelming. So therapy for me individually, and then I also, as I said, couples therapy. And continue to just pour into yourself, similar to what you said, knowing when to say when, having some healthy boundaries. You don't have to, Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not going to be built in a day. I have a 28-year-old son, and a 32-year-old bonus son. So, kind of helping them navigate the world and seeing things through their eyes has been interesting. So I get to kind of see how the other, generations are thinking about challenges and things that they experience and how they deal with pressure. I think the next generation just needs to have that village, get therapy sooner rather than later. I didn't embrace it until I was 53. And I definitely could have used it sooner. I used it in my 20s and I just kind of let it go. But I think that's going to be important as well.
Yeah. I think, while we've been talking about power and authority and influence and how you exercise it, and we've been saying you got to do the work, right? So much of the work is actually really healing,
Yes.
healing from past trauma. Yeah, your own trauma, generational trauma, even what you said about your husband with that, I don't want anybody in my business. Like, that is messaging that we received from, our grandmothers and great grandmothers. Yeah, that's their, because they were taught like, hey, grin and bear it. And yeah, what happens here stays here. And so here we are, suffering in silence unnecessarily. And I think that that's where true freedom comes, where, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about you, that your healing becomes more important than judgment or perceived judgment from others. And so I want to just circle back, especially as it relates to Black women, because I know that this is your wheelhouse. Outwardly, and I'm pretty sure this is true of you, right? Like, I'm regardless of if you're listening and you're a woman of color or not, but you probably have a lot of women in your circle who are Black women who, to your point, outwardly, all the certificates, all the awards, and they look like they are winning on social media, but that that is a heavy burden, if you will, that they carry because it's what you don't see. And for us to ever really fully own who we are and the places that we step in or desire to step in, it requires a lot more transparency and a lot more honesty around like what we don't see. So I'm curious. I know you've written some books, particularly your book on stop being the best kept secret, own your power, own your truth, own your healing, own your worth, and own your destiny. So I'm curious if you have some words of wisdom from what you've already written to share.
Yeah, so the book is called Working While Black, A Woman's Guide to Stop Being the Best Kept Secret. And it was a labor of love. It was me really pouring into women, Black women in particular, but all women, to give them some tools that they can tap into, the tools that work for me that I was able to translate and create a whole coaching program around and see other people be able to use it and transform their healing and existence in society, in the world, in the community, in their homes, in their workplace. And so, yeah, I talk about the 5 pillars of what it takes to stop being a best kept secret, because ultimately that's what I want everyone to do, is stop being their own best kept secret. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. We were all blessed with gifts and prophecy, and we have to know how to tap into that. And sometimes the noise on the outside and also inside our own heads blocks those messages. So the clearing path for me has been to understand what it takes to own your power, your truth, your healing, your worth, and ultimately your destiny. And it means doing the work. And yeah, on the outside looking in, everything looks beautiful and perfect and Instagrammable, but then people fall apart at home, right? You don't know what's happening when that camera lens shuts down. So I think part of that is that, they're doing it for the wrong reasons. So when I talk about this in the book, a lot of things I talk about is not only my personal experience. I've had other professional Black women share what their experiences have been in terms of challenges they face, how they, overcame them, without even realizing that they were using those same tools. Like they were using how to own your power, your truth, your healing, your worth, and your destiny. And so I've kind of categorized the strategies that they use to overcome some of their own adversities in those same pillars. And so again, just giving people tools in the book so that they can take something away and say, okay, this is similar to my experience. I could see myself in her. I identify these issues. I know I have work to do, right? And then I also talk about our allies, right? So this book is also for allies, those that think they're allies or want to be allies or say that they're allies. Read this book because you're going to understand what the struggle looks like from the inside out, right? You're going to be able to get into the lives of these women, including myself, understanding what were some of the things they had to deal with, especially in corporate spaces or as entrepreneurs, and how they overcame them, and where can allies come in sooner along the path versus later on, right? And understanding some of the terminology like code switching, microaggressions, unconscious and implicit bias, how those things show up, intersectionality, and what that looks like when we start combining different aspects of who we are as people moving around this earth. So I know that was a mouthful, but I'm very passionate about the topic and very passionate about people getting these tools.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. There's a difference between pulling people, right? Like you don't want to do that, not when you're climbing. But when you get there, how many turn around and say, hey, here's the ladder, right? Start climbing. And here are some of the tools that you need. And so it sounds like that's exactly what you did with this book is that you took that treacherous climb one step after another over the course of your career and then turned around and said, here's a ladder, guys, start climbing and here's the way.
Sure. Yeah. And again, it's going to look different for everyone, right? Success is different for everyone. But I think the self-work has to start sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much. I want to be respectful of your time here. For those of you who are listening, I will have the link to the book in the show notes. So again, it's titled Working While Black, A Woman's Guide to Stop Being the Best Kept Secret by Dr. Tana Sessions. And so real quick, obviously, the three questions that I'm going to ask for the Blitz sessions, I think I know one of the answers, but well, maybe you'll surprise me.
Okay.
So first one up, if you could go back knowing everything that you know, all of the wisdom that you've gained and give the younger version of yourself a piece of advice that you think would be a game changer or a bit of encouragement to her, what might that be?
I think it would have to be two things. The one thing is that it's going to be okay. And the second thing is that you're enough. Because I think and it's funny enough, my therapist asked me something like this recently, and I gave her the exact same answer. It would definitely be those two things for sure.
Okay, awesome. And, looking ahead, right, you're building an amazing legacy. So if we look, 40, 50, 60, however many years ahead, and you're looking back at everything that you've built, everything that you've established, every person that you've helped supported, what do you want? What do you want the narrative to be for yourself around the legacy that you've built?
I think the scripture that comes to mind is well done. I think that's really where I would want to look back and have people feel like, she did that, right? And then some. I've threatened my son I'm going to live until 120. And I think that scares him. But I think he's also a preacher, like, okay, you really want to stick around? Yeah, I do. I want to see everything that he's going to do, right? But I think it would be, well done, my faithful servant.
I love that. And then last question, in terms of books that have been pivotal for you, either in your own development or in the work that you do, are there any that come to mind?
Ooh, because of law school, I haven't had much chance to do a lot of reading. But I have a core group of DEIB expert women, all Black women, and they've all wrote really, really phenomenal books. I have them on my shelf and tell them I'm going to read them during school break. So I have, Natasha Bowman, Netta Jenkins, Dr. Nikita White, oh my gosh, so many of them. It's too many to name, but they've all written phenomenal books.
I will find those books and include those links in the show notes, along with your book, of course. And as far as those who are listening, if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about the work that you do, both for individuals and organizations, what's the best way for them to connect?
Two ways. I'm always active on LinkedIn, so they can always find me at Dr. Tana M Session on LinkedIn. And then, of course, my website, tanamsession.com, TANAM for Marie, SESSION.com. And they can visit there, and there's all types of resources and information about the work that we do, as well as contact information.
Love it. All right. We will definitely include those links as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Tana. This was an amazing conversation, which I had no doubt that it would be. And for those of you who are listening, regardless of whether or not you identify as a Black woman or a BIPOC woman, I hope you took the nuggets in here that were shared today, because I do think that they are universal and they can support. And also, I would encourage you, if you have Black women or BIPOC women in your immediate circle, to, take that time to really understand or see life through her lens, and how you can support. And so I think the more that we of course do our own work, but also look at our neighbor, and empathize and understand where they are and help give support where we can, then that's what's going to help unify our voices. That's what's going to help affect change in the society, as we know is much needed. So with that, thank you for tuning in this week. I will be back with another amazing female powerhouse. With that, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will talk soon. Take care. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you found today's conversation helpful or got a piece of insight that you plan to implement in your life, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Sabine Gideon and send me a message, or feel free to leave a review on either Apple or Spotify. I also invite you to share this episode with anyone in your network, another powerhouse possibly, who you think might benefit from today's conversation. Lastly, as always, any links, any resources, or any upcoming training is included in the show notes, so be sure to check that before you leave today. Until we chat again, have a blessed and powerful week.